Good morning from Yummy B TV. Wishing you all well today, sending loads of love as usual. I finally get round to part one of my baddest Jamaican yardies I met in different circumstances throughout that life of all time. Many requests for this over the months. I'm going to start with the late 80s or middle 80s, sorry, when I first heard about Jamaican yardies, and I start with my home territory, which is Ladbroke Grove, and I start with Yardie Ron. Now, a lot of talk about Yardie Ron when he first came over, being an alleged gunman, alleged this, alleged that. I first saw him outside a cab office on All Saints Road, which was Ladbroke Grove's, fair to say, front line. We knew that way back in the day, there was Sandringham Road front line over East London, Brixton front line, that was probably the first of its kind in London, Ladbroke Grove, outside the cab office. I saw a man that I used to do things with as a kid, Russell Christie, Linford's brother, if you get what I mean, rest in peace, also having an altercation with then who I found out was Yardie Ron. Yardie Ron was right in his face, he got a big right hand and he was flat out on the floor. Sometime later, one of my old school friends, Sati, rest in peace, dressed down Russell over that matter. And then another time, I was in a One Love dance over northwest London where shots were fired. Don't know who fired them that day, but in the middle of the road, the same guy I saw outside the cab office was Yardie Ron. Everybody was running. Sati was there as well. Rest in peace. That was the first time that I ever saw gunshots fired in real life, if you get what I mean. So Yardie Ron, yes, goes down as one of my baddest yardies of all time. Now, during this time, or shortly after, I was in, no, round about this time, sorry, I was in Ashford. It turned into adult prison for remand and I think deportation, right? And I was on a wing, and Joe Dog, if you haven't heard about him, he was from Ladbroke Grove as well, but I used to hear about him, but I hadn't met him outside by this time. So we're on the wing, Joe Dog turns up, they're trying to deport him, but it didn't happen. He managed to stay in England, I think, during this time. But then shortly after that, when I first started smoking, sadly, I was in a house where, I think I might have told you a lot before, where there was a house where I was at a few weeks when I first started smoking, where I had the ponytail and a big chest, and they had me as security on the door where I was going on meets with a lady, a big name lady, Jamaican yardie from Ladbroke Grove, and Joe Dog came into the house. Now, I knew him obviously from Ashford, so when he saw me, he went, yes, Sammy, boom, 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 boom. I saw this guy take a nick, because I heard so much about him over the years, robbing this, stabbing that, chopping that. I'm in the house, he takes a nick on the pipe of a glass pipe. His whole face went red and he started laughing and he started reaching into his pocket. Everyone vacated the front room, right? Another time I was in a house in Mozart Estate. Remember, I was only probably about a few weeks during this time, and he come in as well, and he stripped 3 people with a big machete, pulled that off all their clothes and took all their things as well. Joe Dog, what a lunatic, what a man, right? So they're my 2 from Ladbroke Grove. I get round to, oh no, another one, sorry, in the same house that I used to hold the door for, Finn Han Barry. I believe, can't be too sure whether the lady that I just mentioned there, they were brother and sister, I think, right? Finn and Barry's name used to get called a lot in a lot of M's and a lot of things, you know what I mean? So when I first saw him, when he came into the house, you could see that he had the respect of the whole place. A lot of people were scared of him, right? Shortly after that, I was in Camp Hill and he was on the detainee bit. I think he got deported. So this would have been about the early 90s, right? But he was a funny geezer as well. He was on the touchline watching football one day, and there was a whole heap of wicked talk from everyone about somebody on the football pitch, right? And Finn and Barry was shouting from the touchline, "You're all mount murderers. You ain't done nothing yet. I murdered everybody." And well, talk about grassing yourself up, right? But Finn and Barry was a character, and he wasn't easy. So those are my first three from the West London side of town. Bit backwards again, round about the first bit. I was in Brixton, right? First time that, because I heard a lot about Jamaican yardie called Tuffy, and another yardie, Tuffy I think was from South London, can't be too sure, right? Crucial was from East London, I think. So during this time, this is 80s again, where I first set eyes on them, I was on a visit. My son's mother, being half Jamaican, came to visit me. Them days in Brixton, you had the little wooden thing in the middle of the table, so like if you stretch across, it was very difficult. And when you come back out, you have to stand on a box, right? So to my left was Crucial, to my right was Tuffy. So when we was walking back through into getting searched, they were eyeing each other up and not really saying much, but you could see there was tenseness. What made me laugh is that before Crucial stepped on the box to get searched, Tuffy threw a big right hand, and it took about a year to get there, right? It was really funny, but Crucial moved back, but it was all in front of the screws. I don't think them two could have a straightener, to be honest. There was a lot of screaming, a lot of shouting, blah. Time later, I heard a lot about Tuffy as well, meant to have been allegedly a big time gunslinger. Crucial, bits and bobs I heard about him too. I was banged up with him for 3 nights as well during that time in Brixton, and I heard some stories from him from way back in the day. Little time later, when I told you when I first started smoking, and I was holding the door of that house, I remember someone walking into the house saying Tuffy had got sprayed on a setup down in South London. Don't know how true that was, but I remember hearing that, and he got, rest in peace, sadly. Crucial, I don't know what happened to him. A lot of talk about him as well, but them two I put in my early baddest yardies of all time. Good, funny characters as well, all of them, like many Jamaicans are, if you get what I mean. Sad life over there. I get round to the prison thing, right? So very difficult to separate these lot, right? Pecos, I was in Swellside with. Killer, Little Killer, was in Swellside and Blunderston with me. Now, Pecos could have a row, right, with his fist. I'm not saying many Jamaicans can or can't, but the ones that I've met over a lifetime, it's very rare that you get a Jamaican yardie that can do a bit of everything, if you get what I mean in that life. Pecos, I saw him have a row, long hand, tall, cane row, man of very few words, right? Really liked him, I did, Pecos, right? And knife man, gunman, allegedly or whatever, but his personnel, I put him as a similar character to somebody else I'm going to mention in a minute, but I have to put Pecos in there because all the rest of the Jamaican yardies seem to respect him as the #1 in Swellside. You lot tell me if I was wrong during this time. Many of you was in Swellside with me. I get round to Little Killer, I believe, rest in peace now as well. Now, Killer was really small. Now, he was meant to be a cold heart killer, but I don't know how true that is. I never saw him kill no one, right? But what I saw from him in Swellside and Blunderston, Killer, he's very slippery and creepy. I saw him stab a man in the side of his head in Blunderston. He got shipped out. I think he might have even gone on the island at some stage as well, not with me though. But in that life, Killer, it has to be said, the right name, obviously, in the end. But he goes down as well as a seriously dangerous man, and a lot of talk around him. Some really cold-hearted things said about him. Don't know how true they are. I wasn't there, so I put him and Pecos in that group as well, right? Now, to separate from the K's, who I believe, with everything, all the things combined together, for brain, for brawl, for know-how, no fear of anything, limited few words, I have to put Escobar in there, right? Escobar, you've heard me talk about it before. Cane Row, light skin, very cool, deep thinker. Really liked Escobar. And Escobar was, in fact, known really as a big man as well for the rest of certain Jamaican yardies, depending on which side of town or which bit you're from. but he was rated really highly and respected by a lot of Englishmen as well, Escobar. So I have to put Esco up there as well. When I get round to the baddest Jamaican yardie of all time, I'm saying all things combined together, where I met so many along the years, I have to separate these two as a bit different from the rest, right? Now, Pecos reminds me a bit of True Blue. I hear now, rest in peace. True Blue, a music artist as well, was wanted in America for extradition during this time as well. True Blue could have a really serious row as well. Slim kind of darkish, right? God-fearing as well, from what I saw, but a very, very serious man. No playing about there. So I have to put True Blue, and I also put Chunky. Cool geezer. I'm not sure whether I think his convictions aren't safe. Personally, from everything I heard from the early days, because he came Labrador Grove in the early days, got deported and come back, right? But True Blue and Chunky, my top two Jamaican yardies in the baddest life, if you get what I mean. But really decent guys as well, if you get what I mean. When I look back, I put them at the top of the tree for everything combined together. Also, special mentions to Lenny Cole, right? Scared him Hamilton, who I put up there as well. You know, I mean, Scared him wouldn't run from no one as well. He always turns up. Funny geezer as well, very, very sporty as well. Had a serious grip on him as well. And I didn't get to see much of him, but Rico, respected as well, like some of them lot from the English lot as well. Rico was well respected, and he had a lot of bottle as well. So I only met him for a couple of weeks once, but throughout all history of the Cat A's, many men talk about him too. So those are special mentions, but those two I separate as the baddest. The other two, sorry, I separate as the baddest Jamaican yardies that I ever met. Sending loads of love. Coming up in a minute. More videos. Sending loads of love.